should I say, good evening, TACSFON UI. I'm so glad to be here today to talk to you about probably the next phase in your life for some people, for many people actually. I hope. I'm so glad to be here with you, TACSFON UI. So I've been asked to talk about scholarships, to 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 talk about how you can go about it, what can you do, what you should you start doing now, and everything around it. Okay, let me start by talking about our days in tax on you. I'm sure my wife will probably show her face during the question and answer session too. So let me start by talking about this. For me, I was in UI between for my BSc between 2008 and 2012. I did my BSc between that time, and then, of course, I attended TACSFON UR through. I was the all rep for Kuti All, and I think that was 2009. Then the following session, I think I was choir chord. Last session, I was the general secretary of the fellowship. Okay, and of course, around the same time, I was general secretary in the department too. I was doing a lot of things together. And it's good to know, for you to know, I met my wife in TACSFON UI. We both finished from TACSFON UI. God has blessed us with two baby boys, and then we are all doing well. All right, so to the order of the day, scholarships. What should you do? How can you gain scholarships? I think the first thing you should know is that I remember 100 level, someone came to speak to us. I think it was at CBN. The person was talking about a lot of things, and then the person mentioned something that I will never ever forget. He said, "It is not about what you study, but how you study it." He was making reference to people think one course is greater than the other. It's, all those talks that, oh, if you don't do this course, you are done for, and all those stuff. But he mentioned that statement, and it made a very lasting impression in me. He said, "It is not what you study, but how you study it." And see, that really, really got to me. And I studied physics, and I started seeing it differently. Like now, I almost changed my course then to another department, but eventually I didn't change, and it made me sit up and write what I actually wanted out of this. So I remember then I wrote in a book the least CGPA I must have in UI, or as an 100 level student. Then I remember I wrote 6.7 as a least CGPA, but of course eventually I had 7.0 as a CGPA. That was when UI was still using 7.0. So I had 7.0 then, and of course it reduced gradually, but I still had my first class. I graduated with my first class. So I'll tell you briefly about my scholarships struggle also, and in that I'll be able to tell you things you actually need to do, things you need to know. So when I finished my BSc, of course, went for service here, came back, started my MSc in UI. Of course, UI gave all first class free, give us a scholarship to study our MSc, and then of course, while during our time then, while we're doing our masters, I noticed some of my colleagues just disappeared. We just didn't see them again. What I didn't know was that many of these guys have been pushing the scholarship button all along, and then once they click, they just abandoned the MSc and they left the country. So of course, then I was pushing for the general scholar. I will come to talk about these scholarships, how they differ from each other, and then what you can actually do. So I was pressing for some scholarships. I was pushing for scholarships in different countries, Singapore, Korea, China. I was just doing it everywhere without actually having a well laid out plan. No, I was just throwing it, whichever sticks. Okay, but eventually none of those sticks, and I had to come back to my drawing board and say, okay, what can I do? What should I do? Of course, I got an offer in Italy then, medical physics in Italy, ICTP, International Center for Theoretical Physics, but eventually I didn't go because of some embassy issues. I wasn't able to pursue as I should. So let's talk about these scholarships. And now I came to the drawing board to be able to differentiate to be able to know what I should actually go for. So now you should know that these scholarships generally, depending on where you want to go, the scholarships have their own definition. Like I made a video on YouTube, I called it Assistantships versus Scholarship. Okay, now all I was pushing for then were scholarships handled by either the government, either Nigerian government, either the government of the country I was looking out for, or some other organizations that offer those funding. So you should know that in a broad category, I would say there is scholarship on one side, there is assistantship on the other side. And then in that broad category, scholarships, you can have it, they may be funded by the government, they may be funded by some organizations. For example, you have the German government, DAAD, they fund some scholarships, okay? They have people come to their country and then get access to these scholarships. Countries like New Zealand, they fund this scholarship. There is this body there. Countries like Russia, there's this body there that fund this scholarship. Okay, there are some organizational scholarships. So some scholarships funded by organization. For example, you have MasterCard Foundation. You have the Bill Gates Foundation. You have many of these people, many of these organizations funding these scholarships. Now, that is what many people, for example, Singapore too, yeah, a very good country. They fund scholarship too. They want people to come to their country, to their schools. So they fund those scholarships too. Now, there is a different type, which is assistantship, majorly, which is majorly seen in the US, okay? It is assistantship. These scholarships are funded by the school, the department, okay? For example, you want to say Florida State University, as an example now. Florida State University they fund this scholarship, okay? They fund this assistantship. Each department fund this assistantship. Fundings come to the school, and this school in turn fund students, okay? And there are like two or three types of assistantship. We call them graduate assistantship. The first one is teaching assistantship. In teaching assistantship, what you do is that once you gain admission to the school, they accept you with funding, they give you the funding, but you in turn teach, okay? That is a teaching assistantship. That teaching, of course, your tuition is waived, and you also have stipend, which you receive either weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whichever agreement they have. That's teaching assistantship. There's also research assistantship. In research assistantship, you are just a research assistant to your advisor, your PI, the principal investigator, or we just say you are a research assistant. You assist in research. You don't do anything teaching. You just focus on your research. Okay, that's research assistantship, and you get paid. Now, a third type, which is not too common, is more like administrative assistantship. Okay, it's more like administrative work. I've seen someone actually offered that before. The person was just doing administrative work for a professor. Okay, so there is that third type, which is not very common generally. Okay, so you have that type of funding. Now, remember on the other hand, I said the general scholarship, you can have them funded by the government or by agencies, by organizations. For example, Commonwealth Scholarship is an example. The UK funds Commonwealth Scholarship, and they invite people from all over the world. Now, why I love assistantships compared to scholarship is because the number available for assistantship is far more than that for what I called scholarships. Okay, for example, it's very limited. You have maybe government of UK, government of government of UK, Australia, government of, not all governments, okay, of these rich countries, some they just do it. They are funding those scholarships, but they can only accept up to a certain maximum number of people. Okay, so they fund those scholarships, but they are limited. But talk about assistantship, for example, there are so many schools. Now, some not assistantship does not only work in the US. Many schools in Europe also do that. Okay, many schools in Germany, many schools in Poland, many schools they employ you like a worker. You come to work for them. Okay, and you are in the process you are moving towards your PhD, your MSc, and they are paying you. So imagine the number of schools you have doing that compared to agencies, government organizations offering these scholarships. Okay, so in my own view, I believe you have more assistantships available out there than scholarship because there are more schools than those organizations or body offering these these scholarships. All right. So in many schools in UK, in Europe, what they will just do is more like an employment. They just put it out in the employment page, and they say they are employing a PhD student, they're employing a master student, a PhD candidate, and then they tell them what the salary is, the amount they will pay the student, and all those stuff. And the student is working for them at the same time, working towards his PhD, his MSc, whatever the student is working towards. Okay, so that's why I believe I love assistantship so much. I encourage students to, of course, go for the scholarship, apply for those Commonwealth scholarship, the Commonwealth shared, apply for those Bill Gates scholarship, those Mastercard scholarship. Many people use Mastercard for that scholarship in Canada. Okay, apply for all those things, but you can also apply directly to schools. Okay, but I mean, those scholarships are very competitive. Of course, all scholarships, including assistantships, they are very, very competitive. Okay, so that's a big difference I want you to see. Okay, and in applying directly to schools, you can discuss, you can speak with the with professors yourself. You can, of course, some scholarships will require you to speak with professors yourself. But of course, um, in applying to schools directly, you speak with professors, you mail them, you send them messages, and then you let them know. You let them know what you have, what you can do. I'll come to that when I start talking about documents. So, next thing, what should you do? What are the documents? Let me talk about documents that are needed generally. Generally, documents that are needed many times, of course, your transcript is very important. Very important here. Your transcript is very, very important. That's why once you graduate, the first thing you should be doing is to chase after your transcript. Make sure you get your transcript. Make sure it is very, very important. Make sure you get your transcript. Okay, so get your transcript. The transcript is what tells them your grade. Okay, that's one of the things they use in judging you, your grade. They want to see what's the grade, and of course, they have all the stuff that they do. Aside your transcript, there's what we call statement of purpose or motivation letter, depending on where you're applying to, depending on the name they give to it. Some we ask you to write motivation letter and statement of purpose, and they give different criteria for it. But generally, most schools require for statement of purpose. Okay, so you need your statement of purpose. You need to write it. What does your statement of purpose say? It's the statement of purpose that tells how you became interested in the course that you have studied or that you are studying or you want to go for. That's how you became interested in it. The statement of purpose tells about the experience you've gained. Of course, you can find that in the CV too, but in the statement of purpose, you have this freedom to talk more about it. Okay, so you were able to talk about how you gained experience, what you gained, different things there in the statement of purpose. Then you also have the opportunity to talk about the research you're interested in. For example, if you've seen a research work for a professor on the school website, you're able to talk about it and then your interest in that work, why you're interested in it. And you're able to talk about what your long-term plan, what your long-term plans, what your goals, your future goals is. For example, someone say, oh, when I finish, I want to remain in the academia, I want to continue to teach, lecture, whatever. Or someone may say, I want to go into the industry, to the electronics industry, probably because you're studying physics and you did condensed matter physics, and you want to continue in the industry. So this your statement of purpose. In the statement of purpose, that is where you write everything. You write everything you want to do, your plans. So it's starting from the past, the present, and the future. Okay. So you talk about how did I come to be interested in this course I'm doing? What have I learned? What is the experience I've gained? Um, is it theoretically or in a lab or in the field, whichever way? And it talks about what is my interest presently? What do I want to do? What am I interested in? You mention the professor's name, you mention all those things, and you mention your future goals, okay, in the statement of purpose. That is what you have there. So it's more or less same like personal statement and motivation letter. They're just variant. Some schools, when they give you, say you write personal statement, they will give you those criteria, things they want you to write about. All right. So another document that is very, very important for you to have is your reference letter. The reference letter is from your recommenders, your supervisors, or your lecturers. And that's why it's very good to have a very good rapport with your lecturers. I had a very good rapport with my lecturers. In fact, they wrote so much for me. I'm very grateful for those my lecturers in physics. Wherever I go, I still talk about them. I talk about all the professors there, all those doctors there. They really did a lot for me in that regard. Okay, so have a good rapport with them. They will be able to write something beautiful about you, something good about you. They want to attest to your strength. They want to attest to the fact that you are qualified for that position. Remember, all the documents you'll be submitting, some schools will require to submit your CV to, some will not. Most schools require that now anyway. All the documents you'll be submitting, they are things that you have done yourself. The transcript, you did it yourself. It's because of your grades. Your CV, you did it. It's what you have done yourself. Your SOP, you've written it yourself. I'll come to talk about GRE, TOEFL, or whatever. There are things you have done yourself. It's only the reference letter that is from someone aside you, someone not you. So you need them to be able to talk about your strength, and it's very, very important. Many people just take it with levity. They just think it's not that important. But let me tell you, reference letter can change the dimension, the way an application is viewed. Even if the person has some weakness and the reference letter is able to say, this person overcame this challenge, they believe the person. The person they believe is more reputable than you in that field, and they want the person's opinion of you. Okay, so the reference letter, you need, many schools require for 2 or 3. You need lecturers to be able to write it for you. And if you're applying to 5-6 lecturers, remember that means like 15 references. Okay, some lecturers may have to write 2, 3, 4 for you, and you have to find more lecturers to write more. So that means you must form a good rapport. Don't say, oh, they are sadists. Oh, I can't work with this lecturer. I can't. No, greet them. If you have been proud doing this way, raising shoulder pad. No, relax. Okay, they are lecturers. You will definitely need their help. So build a good relationship with them. Now, aside all these documents I've mentioned, many schools will require to submit some proficiency exams, the result of some proficiency exam. Many schools will require to submit GRE, the Graduate Records Exam. It's more like writing JAM for our own admission here. That's what GRE is, okay? More like writing, not exactly JAM, but let's just say the closest to it is like JAM, because it's more of an aptitude test. There are subject GREs, okay? So many schools require to write the GRE. Many schools, their good score is 300, the average score is 300. The GRE is weighted out of 340. The minimum you can have is 260. The maximum you can have is 340. So the average is like 300. So many schools require the GRE, you write it. Some schools require English proficiency exams from Nigerians, okay? But not all schools require that. Not all schools. So what I did when I was applying is, every time I see any school requesting English proficiency exam from Nigerians, I just write them. I tell them, hey, we speak English in Nigeria. The language of instruction in universities is English. I state my point. Some schools will waive it for me, some they would not waive it for me. Many schools that did not waive it for me, I didn't apply to them. Those that waived it for me, I applied to them. Okay, so you can always write to them to waive that English proficiency requirement for you, because you're a Nigerian. We speak English. The purpose of the exam is to measure your English speaking ability. Okay, they ask them to write TOEFL or IELTS. The purpose of TOEFL and IELTS is to measure your English proficiency. It's to determine can these students speak English enough? Remember, I mentioned at the beginning that as a teaching assistant, you will teach students, you will assist in teaching undergraduates, you will assist in teaching labs or whatever they ask you to teach, you will grade. Okay, so they want to see, can this person communicate with students and students will understand? That's the purpose of the TOEFL or IELTS. All right, US majorly is TOEFL, Canada, UK majorly is IELTS, but US accepts IELTS too. All right, and some scholarship body require the same thing, GRE, TOEFL, whichever way. So write to them, ask them to waive the requirement for it, because you're a Nigerian, you've been speaking English since you were born, most likely, and you were taught in English. The language, the medium of instruction in our universities is English language. So ask them to waive it for you. Now, next thing I want to talk about is the application fee. Many schools require application fee like $30, some $70, some $50, some $100. In fact, I think I've seen $120 as an application fee. And some schools don't require application fee. Of course, in such schools, the competition will be more because more people will apply. What I usually do again is to send message to those schools and ask them to waive this application fee for me, because of the situation, the economic situation in Nigeria, financial hardship, your salary is small, you're probably not even working, unemployed, and you just want to further your own education. So ask them to waive that application fee for you. Some schools, when you attend their webinars, the seminars that they do, they will waive for many of those that attend those webinars automatically. Okay, so look out for those schools and try as much as possible to apply, attend those webinars, those seminars. Okay, so those are the documents you need for the application. Those are the major documents. So someone is asking, so what should be the first step for me to take? What steps should I take now if I'm actually looking in this direction? Okay, let me remind you, hope you can see that I didn't mention anything about NYSC certificate. I didn't even mention your school certificate, okay, because they are not required. You don't need your NYSC certificate to get this scholarship, get this assistantship. Okay, so you can as well even start applying once you get your transcript. You can start applying actually. All right, so someone is asking, what's the first step? What step should I take now if I'm actually interested? Usually I say the first step is to start searching for the schools you want to apply to. That's probably one of the hardest job actually, searching for the appropriate schools offering your course and offering assistantship in your course. Because again, not all schools offer assistantship in all courses. Okay. For example, if you are a chemistry major, what you just need to do is start searching for schools offering assistantships in chemistry. In Google, just type chemistry assistantships. You see lots of schools pop up. Physics do the same thing too. Now, start looking at their requirements. Now, the beauty of it, for those of you in final year now, is that many of these schools are actually waiving the GRE presently because of the coronavirus. So many of them are waiving the GRE. Many schools are waiving TOEFL for Nigerians. So probably you don't need to write any exam for you to even start the application once you have your transcript. And again, one good thing, if you have your transcript from department, you can use it even to get provisional admission. Okay, remember, many departments give transcript to their students yearly. So if you are in the final year and you've been able to get that from the department, you can use it provisionally to get a provisional admission. And later they just ask you to send the official transcript when it's done. Okay, so one thing I did then is to apply to schools that accept unofficial transcripts. Unofficial transcripts can be student transcripts that you obtain from the office of the registrar, of course. So I'm saying it's possible to also use the one you get from your department, even though it's better to get the one from the registrar's office. So you can get those unofficial transcripts and apply with it. Now, many of them will still request for official transcript later. What that means is you have to courier your official transcript to them, either through DHL, UPS, any of those courier services that you use, and send it to them. Okay, so the first thing, find the schools, find a list of schools offering assistantship in your course. Once you do that, look at their requirements. See if they waive GRE, if they don't waive, so that you know, should I prepare for this exam or not. Generally, I used to ask people to prepare for the exam and write it, okay, generally. But of course, we've seen very many people got funding, full funding, without writing any of those exams. So once you find the school, contact their graduate coordinator if you have any question, find the professors you are interested in their research work, start sending them messages. There's what we call cold emails. On our YouTube channel, there's a video there on cold emails. Check the video. If you can check out this YouTube page, check the videos, you will see very good, robust discussion on cold emails. Majorly what cold email is saying is, hey prof, I'm interested in, don't say hey prof, I mean, I'm just giving a general view. It's just saying, professor, dear professor XYZ, introduce yourself briefly, and then what you are into. Introduce yourself briefly. Samuel Ajayi, I'm a final year student of so, or I'm a graduate of computer science from the University of Ibadan, and I have interest in research in Python, Java, or whatever. Just write it, and then tell the professor, I read your research work on so, and I saw that you do blah blah. You do work on panel something. Just write those things you have read that you have done, and then you love to work with him. You love the research. You are interested in working in that line too. Your research interests align, and you love to have him as a potential advisor because you're applying to the school. Okay, so just briefly introduce yourself, tell him you are intending to apply to the school, tell him what you have done, tell him what you read about him, what attracted you to him, tell him if there's anything fantastic about what you have read in his works, probably his papers. Let him know that you saw it, you found it very interesting, very fascinating, and you tell him whatever you feel about that work, because professors are human beings too. They love feedbacks. That's a form of feedback for such a professor. Okay, so tell him what you love about what you have read, and then tell him you want to have him as a potential advisor, and just wait for a reply. You can tell him that you'll be happy if time is scheduled for you to meet and talk more about those research. Basically, that's what code email is. If you want more details on that, you can check that video on YouTube. Our channel page is Sam and Itunu Ajayi, okay? So you can search Sam and Itunu Ajayi on YouTube, and then you see that video on code emails there. There are so many videos that we have done there on visas, F1 visas, student visas, all that. Okay, so once you send the email to the professors, just wait for a response. You can send email to the graduate coordinator in the school too, or in the department, and wait for a response just to get more information. Okay, and I must tell you, in the US, it is not compulsory to have a potential advisor before you can get admission or funding. Okay, once you are good enough, you are good. You can apply without even sending mails to professors. But it's good to send mails to professors, because sometimes when they accept to have you as their student, they can speak for you in the process of selecting students who will attend this school. Okay, because it's more like it is sure you are joining their group or their lab. Okay, that's one of the main reasons why, one of the importance of sending cold emails or emails to professors. Now, that's in the US. For schools in Europe, many times, Eastern Europe, many of the schools, Germany, they advertise that position. So, and when they advertise that position, they tell you who to send your CV to, you to contact. That is no longer a cold email, that is an application in the real sense, more like applying for a job. Okay, they say PhD candidate needed, and then they put it there 3.5 years or 3 years or 4 years. They put it there, and then they let you know what the salary will be, what other stuff. They let you know everything. So it is for you to contact them and just write like an application to them. Okay, in the US generally you just apply to schools generally, but many contact potential advisors because they can speak for them. And of course, if you are interested in the person's research and that's who you want to start working with, why not start discussing with the person even before you leave Nigeria, so that you have an idea of what direction you want to take. Okay, so those are the things that you need to know to be able to apply to those schools. So once you make your application, many of the application, the deadline for many of the application for fall session is usually some schools in December, some in January, some in February, very few in March, okay, because you need time to be able to process your visa. So once you make those applications and you are chosen, you are successful in your application, what they just do is that they tell you, oh, congratulations, you've been successful, and they tell you what the amount would be, what the stipend would be, the amount to be paid monthly or yearly, whichever way they do it, and then they let you know when resumption is. Resumption in US is usually the last week of August, many times. Okay, the last week of August. So the next thing they do after all that is they send you your I-20, and then you start processing your visa, and before you know it, you are in the US. Many times the process, give it like between 9 months to 12 months. Okay, for example, if you want to apply for 2022, you want to resume in for 2022, you should have started now. You should start writing or preparing for your GRE now, TOEFL if you need it, and all those stuff, so that by December you have all your documents ready and you start applying. I can say that the hardest one to get is usually the reference letter, because that is out of your probably transcript for a school like UI, to where you have to spend a lot of time getting your transcript. But once you get that, your own official transcript, that student copy, you can start using it everywhere. Okay, so all you need to do now is to start preparing for the exam if you actually want to be writing the exam, and then apply when the time comes before the deadline. Many schools, some schools December 1, some 10th, December 31st, some January 15th, some 1st of February, some March 31st, and on and on. By April, everything should have been set. You should have known if you are giving funding, and then you should have started the process for your visa application. That may take between 2 to maybe 1 month, 1 to 2 months, depending on how fast you can get a date to apply. All right, so I will end this video here. I will allow you to ask any question which you have. I'll be live to answer the questions. All right, God bless you. God bless TACSFON UI. Very soon, one of these days, we're gonna meet and talk more and more and more and more. We are fully TACSFON at Lord. I mean, myself and my wife, we are fully TACSFON. We were molded, we were built in TACSFON, and we cannot forget how much the fellowship means to us. The fellowship really means a lot to us. All right, so I'll be expecting your question. Thank you. God bless you.